Everybody for joining today's webinar. My name is Nikhil and I'll be the host for today's meeting. So we plan on having webinars like this one every single Saturday, so make sure to stay updated. Our goal is to help as many students as possible, so we would appreciate it if you could share our program with your friends and family. With all that being said, let's get started. Today, we have the privilege of having Sayon as our speaker. He'll be speaking about his job as a data scientist. He will talk about his work environment, educational experience, and more. And everyone will be given the opportunity to ask him questions. So if you have any questions in between, you can type it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask it. Now, Sayon, can you give us a short introduction of yourself first?
Sure. Hi, guys. My name is Sayon Sengupta, and I'm currently a freelancing data scientist. I work on a few projects and the domain usually varies depending from real estate to healthcare to finance because I'm a freelancer. But and I work on data science projects, which is usually making predictions and on a feature variable given data set. So yeah, that's what I usually do.
So as you're in your job, what do you do on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, I usually use two types of applications called Python and R. So I use these applications to make a machine learning algorithm that will be able to that I can train. And after training it, I can actually create a testing variable. And with the testing variable, I can actually test the training data set. And after doing both of those things, I can actually evaluate the data set and see how closely I predicted a certain feature variable. So let's say I have a data set, right? There's columns and rows. And there's a certain feature variable, so a specific column that I want to make predictions on. So by prediction, I mean I want to be able to estimate or guess what the values are in those rows, depending on the other columns. Does that make sense? Because the other columns have a effect on the row on the column that I'm looking at. So what happens is I use a training mechanism called it's called machine learning, and I use the training algorithms. And using the training algorithm, I train the algorithm to recognize and understand what variables or what values it's going to become after I pass it through the algorithm. And once that happens, I split into training and test set, and I train the data set, and then I test the data set, testing whether the data set itself is accurate or not. So that's basically my usually day-to-day job.
So to get to this position, what education or degrees did you need?
I got a computer engineering degree. So that was my only degree that I did, and it was my undergraduate, and I did it from the University of Texas at Dallas. And yep, that's pretty much that's the undergrad education I did. I also did my high school at the Texas Academy of Maths and Science, which is TAMS for short. And there I just got my high school degree, but it was from UNT.
So what drew you to this field? Was there something that appealed to you as a data scientist?
Yeah, so I was always very interested in math and statistics, and once I got into my degree as a computer engineer at UTD, I recognized that there was a lot of logic and discrete math involved in computer science, but there wasn't a lot of statistics and mathematics like calculus involved. So I wanted to do something where there was more math and statistics and calculus involved, and data science actually happens to fit that perfectly.
So what age were you when you realized that you liked math and that you wanted to pursue this career? Was it in high school, and were there any role models that you wanted to follow?
Yeah, so I wanted to pursue mathematics and the field in mathematics when I was applying to colleges. I was actually debating between an actuarial scientist and a computer engineer, but I decided to go with computer engineering because it's a broader field. And my role model would probably be my dad. He's also a computer engineer, so he guided me along the process.
So there were many majors to choose from when you were choosing and applying to colleges. Was it overwhelming for you to choose, or were you sure that you wanted to do something engineering related?
Um, well, I originally I could have wanted to do something like biology or healthcare related, but I took biology class and I wasn't that good at it, so I decided to stick to engineering because it was my forte and I really liked physics. So inherently, I liked things that had mathematics and science involved.
So as a freelancer, what exactly is your favorite part about your job and how you work on different projects,
Um,
sorry.
my favorite part about my job is one thing is that I get to work with the timing, so I'm not restricted to any specific timing. I get to work on the project on my own time and get to finish it and turn it in. But the other thing is I get to work on a variety of domains. So, for example, a recent project that I'm working on is for a boiler temperature, or boiler room, which is actually boiling hot water. And it's this huge tank, and it has hot water in it, and it's just boiling that hot water for use wherever in the city. And it's that's one of my projects that I'm working on right now. But alongside with that, I also worked on a project for a restaurant where I had to predict the sales of a restaurant. And I also worked on a project for a real estate investment trust, and I've also worked on a project for a healthcare company. So it just depends. It just depends on the nature of the project that comes. So I really get a variety of domains that I get to work in.
So with these projects, how was your work situation like before COVID-19?
Before COVID-19, it wasn't very different. The thing is, I was freelancing before COVID-19 as well, or I was where I had a full-time job back in 2019, and during that time, I was working for a company. I was consulting, and for a company called Tata Consulting, and there I was working in the office, and I was working. As a IT consultant and doing Java code and business analyst work. So that's mainly the biggest difference that happened between COVID-19 and now. But I don't have much of a difference since the beginning of the year because I started freelancing at the beginning of the year.
Okay, so do you mainly work at home or do you go out in public and do projects?
As of right now, I mainly work at home, just because of COVID and anything. I want to restrict my movement.
So if you weren't working in this field, then would there be any other field that you would be working in right now?
Um, I'm also very interested in psychology, so I might be working as a social worker or something like that. But it's really up to you. It depends on what you're interested in. Uh, I just found computer engineering more interesting than social work, but I recently got more exposure to social work, so I've been getting a little bit more interested in psychology and things like that, as if it was a healthcare field.
Right. And do you have any advice for kids if they want to follow your footsteps and also pursue computer engineering?
Yeah, sure. So the best thing that I would say is stick to your gut. And if you really want to pursue computer engineering or an engineering discipline, um, go for it. The STEM careers they're out there, and computer engineering there's a ton of jobs for computer engineers and computer scientists. Um, there's always a very big demand, and people really need computer scientists, and there's never a lack of them. I've never seen a lack of them yet.
So thank you for that. If you could go back in time and fix a mistake, is there anything that you think you would have done differently?
I might have changed my major just a little bit. I might have added in a mathematics background, um, a mathematics major or minor. Uh, but It's okay now. I think I'm getting enough exposure to data science as it is. Um, but if you really know what you want to do, that's actually more power to you. So get good exposure to what you want to do beforehand, before actually you actually apply to college.
So could you explain a little bit more about what data science is so that high schoolers are able to understand it a little bit more?
Sure. Well, data science is really a systematic study of the structure and behavior of data in order to quantifiably understand past and current occurrences, as well as predict the future behavior of that data. Um, so what that means is like data science actually uses data to make predictions on past and current occurrences, and it'll actually make predictions on the future of that data, future behavior of that data, um, depending on the current and past um observations.
So in your job, do you have a lot of programming?
Well, data science is composed of programming and a lot of statistics. So yes, I do have a lot of programming, and it's usually in Python or R, depending on which one you like to use. And it's a good field that it's a lucrative field because there's quite a few people that like to use it, that need data scientists at least. And there's a lot of people moving into artificial intelligence and AI and machine learning. So
So
go for it.
someone asked a question. So you were mentioning how you predict many variables. So
Yeah.
what are some examples of the things that you predict?
So let me give you a good example. For my real estate investment trust, what we were basically doing, so a real estate investment trust is just a company that does real estate investment. And there was a few workers in the REIT. They're called REIT for short. There were a few workers for the REIT that were doing appraisals, and the appraisal prices were off by around 70K. So they weren't doing a good job making predictions on the appraisal. So we actually replaced human beings doing appraisal prices with a software that actually predicted the appraisal price of a property before the home was actually purchased. Or and the so the thing that we predicted in that case was the appraisal price of a property. Um, does that help?
Yes, that's great. So um someone also asked a question. So which mathematic classes in high school and colleges would be best helpful if they also want to be a data scientist?
For a data scientist, statistics definitely. Statistics is a big part of data science, and it's probably one of the biggest parts. And having a good grasp on statistics really helps for data science. That's because a lot of the algorithms are based off of probability, and there's a lot of calculus involved as well.
So how do you think your field will change over the next 10 years?
I think will flood into data scientists, so there'll be less of a demand, but there will always be more of a demand in artificial intelligence. So data science is always a stepping stone into AI. And if you want to become a machine learning engineer, there's also that. So artificial intelligence is this big umbrella of a lot of different disciplines, but data science is one part of artificial intelligence, and so is machine learning. But machine learning is a subset of data science. So machine learning is used in data science, and it's used in other disciplines in machine learning and artificial intelligence as well, such as natural language processing. So there's really a lot you can do. So if anything, I would say you should get your hands dirty with machine learning and use machine learning in your or try out machine learning code and get familiar with what machine learning is. Um, and you'll be able to get into data science or another field within artificial intelligence that uses machine learning.
Thank you for that. So
Yeah.
you mentioned how you use a variety of languages. So which language do you think that you use the most and would be the most important to learn?
I definitely use Python the most, but if you start off as a computer engineer, I'm pretty sure they'll start with Java, which is not bad because you get a good grasp of object-oriented programming and you get a good grasp of like the language itself and how it works and programming languages and how like for loops work and loops and the logical statements, the conditional statements, they all work. So as long as you get a good grasp on that, it's really similar in most of the other languages. It's just Python and R. They're very similar. So it's nothing too difficult that you have to like really. There's a huge learning curve. Because I picked up Python and even now like I still go back and Google stuff and figure things out like that. But um, there's not that big of a learning curve if you do well learning your first programming language, no matter what
Thank
it
you.
is.
So someone sent this question. They were asking, what is machine learning? And could you explain a little bit more about it? And same for AI.
Sure. So machine learning is the process of a machine actually being able to estimate or make a prediction on a data set given a, or it's not necessarily given a data set because there's also something called unsupervised learning. But there's two types of learning that happens with the machine. It's called supervised learning and unsupervised learning. So the thing that I work with most of the time is called supervised learning. And in supervised learning, you have a data set which which you make predictions on, and you make predictions on a specific column. So let's say for the real estate project that I was talking about, I had a bunch of columns on there, like the size of the plot, how many restaurants were nearby the property, how many nightlifes were nearby the property, how many salons were nearby the property. So all these things, they come together and they may have a effect on the transaction price of a property, right? The appraisal price changes as these other variables go up and down. So what it was I had to feed this whole data set into a machine learning algorithm. And basically the algorithm is a process in which a machine can understand how to make a prediction on the data set. And it uses that algorithm to train. And once it trains itself, you can test it. Because what you do is you actually split the data set into a training set and a test set, and you train the algorithm with the training data set, and then you use the test data set to test your accuracy. I hope that made sense. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
thanks for explaining. That helped help us understand the terms of
sure.
machine learning and artificial intelligence. So
Yeah.
someone sent another question. They asked, in high school, what extracurriculars did you take, and which ones do you think were the most important for you?
Extracurriculars. I really like to play basketball, so I always took basketball, and I always like to play with my friends. So it's a good way to stay in shape and have a close group of friends as well. Um, so yeah, one of the other extracurricular activities, I used to swim as well, but I stopped swimming like in middle school. So by the time I got into high school, I stopped swimming. But I used to play a lot of basketball, that's for sure.
Thank you for that. So how at your job, how are your hours like? So how long do you work in a day or in a week?
I work about 35 to 40 hours a week. And it's not too difficult, especially during coronavirus time. It's not too pressurous, and uh, the wage is also pretty good, so I don't mind the hours at all. And 35 to 40 hours is practically is an easy week. It's not too difficult. But before coronavirus, I was working about 40 to 50 hours, which is a little more strenuous. But I'm enjoying like a little leeway period during coronavirus.
So someone asked another question. They said, could you share your experience at TAMS and what is the process of getting to TAMS and how is life over there?
Sure. So getting into TAMS, it's a great program, by the way. You should definitely do it. I made a lot of connections at Texas Academy of Maths and Science, and met a lot of people. Got a lot of got a lot of college credits because I basically went to UTD for my high school. Or sorry, UNT. I basically went to UNT for my high school, and it was a great program. And the process of getting in is you have to apply. If you go onto the TAMS website, if you just type in TAMS in Google, you'll go to the TAMS website, and they'll have the process on there. But just for off the top of my head, I think there was a you have to submit recommendation letters from your teachers. You have to submit your SAT scores. You have to write a few essays, and I think you have to score. Or back then, you used to have 3 subjects on the SAT. Now you only have 2, right? Do you
I'm
know?
not I'm not
You're not
sure.
sure? Okay, never mind. I think there's only 2 subjects on the SAT now, which is math and English. So you have to score above I think it was 700 on the math section, above a 650 at least on the math section. So going into your sophomore year of college, you want to be able to prepare for all of this. Because you apply towards the mid of sophomore year, you're probably applied by then, and TAMS occupies the junior and senior year of your high school career.
So how do you think TAMS differs from your normal high school that you went for ninth and 10th?
Well, TAMS really provided me with a college experience before getting into college. So I basically lived in a dorm at UNT with all like 400 of these TAMS students, and we had a great time actually because like we all lived together. So it was basically high school, but you lived together with your friends. And
So
yeah, and it was a good time, and we got a lot of exposure to the UNT campus and how college culture was like before we actually went to undergrad itself. So it's a good prospect. You should definitely look into it.
so it helped prepare you for college, right?
Yes, it did. It did. And it also gave me a lot of college credits. I only had to take like 12 hours per semester in order for me to graduate, which isn't a lot at all.
So one sec. So for your job, what all are you working on right now, and which of the projects was your favorite project that you've worked on?
For my job, I'm working on a data science project for Proteger Analytics, which is with the boiler room project that I was speaking to you about. But my favorite project that I have worked on is actually is a project for a healthcare system where it's for an endoscopy. So what it is that a patient would swallow a pill, which is actually a really small camera, and the camera he swallowed takes pictures of his large and small intestine, and eventually, and it takes every 2 seconds it'll take a picture, and so since it takes pictures every 2 seconds, it adds up. There's quite a few pictures that come out by the time you actually release the pill. And so what I did was I worked on a project that basically had image recognition for the pill for the endoscopy, and it basically we could tell whether there was internal bleeding happening in the large and small intestine uh, by just taking pictures, and we could sort through the pictures very quickly with this machine learning algorithm that used image recognition to tell whether there was internal bleeding in the small and large intestine.
So in that project, did you also have to predict a lot of things like you were mentioning that you?
So this was not so much of a data science project as it was more of a artificial intelligence project. So this was also it did have to you did have to make a lot of predictions because you were still making a prediction on whether or not there was bleeding happening or not. But it was something which you call a classification problem. And so a classification problem is when there is a binary solution to the problem, whether there's bleeding or there's no bleeding. That's a one or a zero, right? So there's mm, there's that, and the classification problem itself wasn't too difficult to get into, but sorry, my mind is blank there. What was the question that you asked?
Um, I was asking about what all the variables were you predicting in
Oh
this
yeah, the
project?
predictions. Yes. So yeah, we were making a prediction on whether whether there was internal bleeding or happening in the large and small intestine, basically.
So you also mentioned previously that you had a full-time job before your freelancing job. So could you
Correct.
elaborate a little more about what you did in your full-time job?
Sure. Yeah. So I was a IT consultant. So I was basically working as a developer and a business analyst at the same time. And we had different teams, and we were delivering solutions to Michael's, actually, the arts and crafts store. They we worked for their IT department, and we delivered solutions to them, a variety of solutions. One of them was like changing a server, or changing the certificates of a server, or issuing an upgrade for a server. A lot of back end work, but we did some front end too, but the front end was mainly CSS and HTML and JavaScript based. So it wasn't too bad. I haven't used Angular yet, but yeah, it's mainly just CSS and JavaScript based. JavaScript is a really good programming language to pick up as well. It's not too difficult, um, but yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that.
So how do you think that full-time job varied from what your current freelancing job is? How do they differ?
The full-time job was definitely more rigid, whereas the freelancing job was definitely more. It's a freelance, so I have more time to do the things that I like, which is why I chose to do freelance. Um, uh, because I wanted to gain more experience in the data science field, and I that's why I decided to do freelancing, because I get to work on the things that I wanted to work on, and it's a good opportunity for me to learn.
Thank you for that. So someone asked a question. They said, if we get any opportunity as an intern while I'm doing my 12th grade, does it benefit their college admission?
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely write about that in your essays, or put it on your. I don't know if you submit a resume for college, but you can definitely put that on your essays, or uh, if you do submit a resume, you can submit it on your resume as well. So yes, it definitely does benefit, and doing an internship would probably give you a lot of experience that a lot of other students wouldn't have, uh, basically. So you could talk about that during an interview as well.
So did you work on any internships
Yes,
before?
I did. Not during my high school career, but I did work on an internship uh, during my undergrad, and I worked for this company called Sabre Holdings, which basically controls all the flight. So if you book a flight on American Airlines or an airlines like that, they get a small percentage of their uh, of the flight purchase that you make, because you're using their software in the back end. So they're a back-end company, but they're an IT company that uses software for the travel industry. Um, so and it's not just for airplanes either. It's for hospitality, for veteranism. So they have a variety of disciplines within the company, but it's mainly for the travel industry. So yeah, that's where I interned, and I interned during my um, sophomore to junior year summer. Between that,
So,
between
so were you working on any coding projects as an intern?
Yeah, I was working as a business intelligence and data analytics intern. So even there, I was working with data, but I was working more with BI, which is business intelligence, and which means that I was working more with data visualizations. So what a data visualization is you're making dashboards, or um, you're making reports. You're basically making a report for the client, saying that, hey, this is your annual income, blah blah blah. You can have a variety of information within the report, but it's basically a bunch of charts and graphs, and you can do it in Excel as well. But you usually end up using a more advanced tool such as Tableau or ClickView. I was using ClickView during my Sabre internship, but you usually end up using a more advanced tool just so you can make it a little bit more nice to see. And it's a little bit easier to use on these tools as well.
So, do you think that internship helped prepare you for your current job?
Yes, definitely. I got exposure to business analytics, and got exposure to manipulating and wrangling data, because there's always a component of data prepping that happens, even within business intelligence and within data science, where you always have to prep the data for the thing that you want to do. So I got exposure to that as a BI analytics engineer.
So, this next question is a little different. Aside from your job, what hobbies do you partake in?
Um, like I said, I like to play basketball. I like to hang out with my friends. Um, watching movies. Just last night I watched a movie called Tenet. It was pretty good. You guys should watch it. And yeah, just grab food with my friends, watch movies, uh, just hang out. So yeah, um, it's a variety of things, but mainly hang out with my friends. I think that's my favorite thing to do.
So, someone asked a question. They said, "Do you have any recommendations for high schoolers?"
Do I have any recommendation? Um, I would say if you're interested in TAMS, you should definitely try it out. I feel like this is a good opportunity for high schoolers to get exposure to college lifestyle and still be able to complete their undergrad, and make a lot of connections. Because now I have friends like in all over the place, whether it's California, New York, Seattle. Um, I have friends working in different areas, and so like if I wanted to switch jobs, or if I wanted to move from city to city, I always have people that I can like hit up and say, hey, I'm moving here, like let's meet up or catch up. So I'm not completely alone anywhere, which is a really big thing as you get older, because you don't want to lose your um, you don't want to lose your social life, and it gets a little bit more lonely after college, because in college you have a really close knit friend group, and then like everything breaks apart after college. So it's good to have a good network as well. So keep that in mind while you're going through your undergraduate career and your high school career.
So, those are all the questions that I had. Is there anything else you would like to cover that we didn't go over?
No, I think I'm good. You guys are pretty comprehensive.
So, now if anyone has any questions, you can send it in the chat real quick, and or you can unmute yourself and ask your questions if anyone has any. Okay. So thank you so much, everybody, for attending. And thank you so much, Sayon, for speaking about your career. It helps a lot of students who wanted to know more about data science and computer engineering. It helps them understand what it is and how the field is like. So thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Yeah,
It
sure.
will go a long way. And with that being said, thank you everyone who attended this. And if you guys liked it, make sure to share the program with your friends. And yeah, thank you so much for speaking today.
Yeah, thank you, Nikhil, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.